What is up, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited for this one because we have Meezy. So Meezy and we met on YouTube. I actually remember I was watching your Microsoft. Well, you weren't at Microsoft yet. You were studying for technical interviews. And I just, something I had never told you this either, but like you were doing a question and you like got it wrong like twice, but then you got it right. And I'm like, wow, she's so brave to like show that on YouTube.
Yeah. That honestly, like, it's one of, to me, my cringiest videos, not because like the subject or like the process was cringe. Like I really like the video, but cringy to me because I'm like, oh, I do not miss feeling like that. I don't miss that phase of my life. Like it's just so hard to watch myself go through that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I love about your YouTube channel is just how real you are. And I hope we can like touch on that in here with like different things. But yeah, everyone go check it out. But yeah, Meezy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Meezy. As Maya said, we met on YouTube. It's actually been like 2 years at this point because we met during the pandemic. I'm a software engineer. This is my 5th year in industry, I want to say, and right, I'm surprised I'm still here, but I'm happy. um, let's see. I live in Texas, Dallas to be specific, and I graduated with my computer science degree in 2017. And I'm currently enrolled in Berkeley, getting a master's of data science. So
Amazing, just does so many things, y'all. So I kind of wanted to go back to when you wrote your first line of code. Where were you? What was the language? Kind of set the scene up for us.
Okay, all right. So I'm trying to think, and I think my answer is going to be a bit controversial. So, of course, everybody says, like, oh, I was on MySpace and I was fixing up my profile. I don't count that, not because it's HTML, but just because it was copy paste and just changing a couple little things. Like,
Okay.
code before we knew it was code. But if people want to claim that, I'm not mad at them. So I was probably doing that in like 5th and 6th grade, which why was I on MySpace? Why?
Right?
Like that was not working. And Bebo, if anybody remembers that, MySpace is like great value
Oh,
version. Yeah. But then I will say, like, I remember taking a class on web development, and I was probably around in 8th grade at that point.
okay.
So that was the first time. It was like I have a lot of my parents' friends were teachers. And so they would find out about these little like programs that people were putting on in Dallas. Um, and so that was probably where I wrote my first line of code. It was at like a community college. They would host the classes there. But I would say my most memorable first line was when I was a freshman in high school and I took my first like actual computer science class. And we used this system called Giroux, and it was to help us learn Java. So like Giroux, I guess it's kind of like a little game that was supposed to make it easier to learn to code, but honestly, it just confused me so much. Like I promise you, once we stopped using Giroux, stuff just started to click for me. If you know about if you've been traumatized by Giroux, I would like to know about it in the comments because I'm starting to think it was fake and my teacher made it up. But
I've never heard of that.
yeah, it was for Java, so I don't know. But I haven't touched Java since then, and I'm okay with that.
Wow. Okay. So it was, you would count 8th grade as your first time.
8th grade is the first time, yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned it was difficult, and I think some people like listening to this find it difficult learning to code.
Yeah.
So can you name one part of coding that was difficult for you? Kind of like what made it difficult, and then a little bit of like, inspiring, like how did it become easier, later on, or what did you learn to make it easier?
My first memory of something being super hard for me to grasp in computer science was recursion.
Oh,
I first learned it in high school, and it like to me, it always felt like an infinite loop. I'm like, well, how do you know? How does it end? Like we're talking about recursion, but like infinite loop is just gonna keep going. And I would say honestly, I didn't truly grasp it until college. And I probably could have gotten it in high school if I would have just kept trying, if I would have kept repeating, kept doing problems, kept actually messing around with code versus just reading. I used to be a big like reader, and if I couldn't
damn.
read the book, I feel like I couldn't do it. Yeah. So And now that I'm older, I do that with everything that I find difficult. Like I just keep practicing. So that is the biggest thing. Unfortunately, you have to do things a lot of times for it to really stick. It sounds like cliche advice, but it really does work. And it's really how you get to like to be the best version of like the computer scientist that you want to be.
I love that. And recursion was something that was hard for me too. So I was first introduced to it in college, did not understand it. I failed those tests. And it wasn't later until I was studying for technical interviews and doing so many tree problems and like recursive problems that I finally understood it. So I totally understand that. And
Yeah.
I also wanted to know more about like the environment. So, oh, also, so you really got introduced to coding at a young age. When did you know you wanted to study computer science?
Yeah, so my high school is I don't think I should say the name of my high school, but it was focused on science and engineering.
Oh, okay. I didn't
um,
know that.
yeah. So it was specific, like we took a lot of engineering classes. Like I was in the low level track, and that's because I only took one math class my freshman year. There
Mhm.
were freshmen who took calculus their freshman year. So like
Wow.
the first half of freshman year, they would take algebra and geometry, and then the second half they would switch from algebra into calculus. I didn't have a brain for that yet. I wasn't fully developed, so I just did algebra and geometry together. I didn't do, I didn't move on to calculus until my like sophomore year or something like that. But anyways, so we on top of a whole lot of math, we also got to try a lot of different sciences. Like we had an electrical engineering class, we had hardcore chemistry, and our teachers, they treated us like we were in college. And I didn't believe that when they would tell us until I got to college. But I think they could have let us be kids. Like there's no reason I should have been going through that in high school. So anyways, all of that to say, I got to try out a lot of different things, right? We got to do some like high level chemistry labs. We got to do a good amount of biology. Like I think I was a sophomore in AP biology. Like it was
That's
just
crazy.
a
This is
lot of,
all crazy.
yeah, I was either a sophomore or a junior in AP bio. So it's like, I got to try out a lot of different areas of science and engineering. And the only one that really stuck with me was computer science. Um, the rest of them I didn't do well. And back then, for me, not doing well was getting a B, missed those times.
Right?
But computer science was the one that stuck with me. And I happened to have a woman as a computer science teacher in high school. And that at the time, I didn't realize that it was a big deal. But now that I'm older, I'm like, that was probably part of the reason why I felt like I could do it.
Wow.
And that it was for me, because that was one of the only classes where I had a woman as a teacher. So that was probably when I decided, when I realized I wasn't that good at anything else. So I was like, computer science is the one.
Okay. Okay. So then how was your experience in college studying computer science? Like, for me, I was making good grades in high school. I got to college. It wasn't like that no more.
Yeah,
That
so
experience.
yeah, so I was one of the lucky ones who started getting B's and C's in high school. I think it builds character. People are really scared, right? But once you get your first C, it's like I didn't die. Nothing bad happened to me.
Yeah.
And of course, A's and B's was always the goal.
Mhm.
But once I knew what happened, once I got a C, my life changed. And so, like I said, my high school classes were very much like our professors treated us like we were in college. We had a good amount of homework. Um, I wouldn't say, well, no, we kind of had to study a lot outside of class to make sure we really got the material. So as far as like the change in like rigor and the change in like the pace, thankfully it was not very different for me.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, like it was all like it was a very smooth transition for me from high school to college. And then my freshman year of college, I wanted to make my life easy, so I took beginner computer science. I didn't try to test out of that, and then
Smart.
I took Cal 1, which I had already taken in high school, and I also took Cal 2, which I'd also done in high school. And the only class I remember being super hard for me, math wise, was Cal 3 and linear algebra.
Ooh.
And
Yeah.
Cal 3 is because I just didn't go to class. That was on me. That was on me. Um, but as far as the programming classes, there's a few that threw me for a loop. So the first thing was that I used Python for the first time when I got to college. And so that was a little different for me. I also had to take a class where I use C. I think that everybody that does computer science goes back down to like compiler level languages, right? Yeah. So that was a little different. And I was like, this is stupid. Assembly language, the assembly class. I was like, I'm not doing this. Like, I'm definitely not doing this. Like, it's not happening. So those classes kind of threw me for a loop and they took a lot. And honestly, I wasn't that good of a student to be honest with you. I was always so scared to ask questions. It wasn't, they did treat us like we were in college and high school, besides the fact that it was very easy to talk to my teachers back then. Once I got to college, they didn't seem very personable.
Yeah.
And of course, I was the only person that looked like me in 99% of my classes.
Yeah.
And it seemed like I was the only one that didn't have parents that went to school
Yeah.
for computer science. So there was a lot of stuff working against me, or at least I felt like it was.
Yeah.
And so on that side of it, I struggled because I didn't know where to go for help. I didn't feel like I had people I could trust. The staff, the computer science staff, they just were not very supportive outside of like the counselor. Is that what you call them? The people that do your schedules, tell you what you need to take to graduate.
I didn't like mine, so I can't even relate to that. I thought the teachers only like the super kids that knew it already. That's
right, exactly. And I'm just like, what are we here for? Like,
exactly.
I'm the one challenging you to do your job. Like, you should like me.
Right?
Yeah. So yeah, I honestly, as far as class went, I didn't have a great time in college. Now, outside of class, I was having a blast.
Yeah.
But in class, it just wasn't, no.
Yo, I relate to a lot of your college experience. You know, for me in the beginning, I had to learn how to do college because my high school is a breeze and all that stuff. And then just like learning this new system and all that stuff was an adjustment. And then coding too, I didn't feel comfortable going to my professors. So I'm over here going to the classmates I did feel kind of comfortable with, but they didn't know what they were talking about. So I'm over here learning it not really correctly. Like, I don't think it was my sophomore year until I was like, okay, I need to go to office hours. Like, I need to change something to do better. And yeah, classes, 300 people. I'm the only one that looks like me. And, you know, there's so many microaggressions going on and all that. Yeah.
No, okay, wait. So I have a question for you, even though you're interviewing me. Did you use online resources a lot? Because I did not. I feel like they weren't as robust when we were in college as they are now.
I did not use on like that. I related when you said you kept like reading the book and stuff like that. Like when I didn't understand something, I'll go to the textbook, but those textbooks are written like so dense and are so hard to read. It was like going in circles, but no, I did not utilize the internet as much as I should.
Like, I feel like we only had like Khan Academy and maybe some Stack Overflow.
Khan Academy,
like,
yes.
I think the people who were creating back then were like hardcore computer science people, so it really wasn't that much better than going to class. That's kind of how I feel about it. But maybe it's because I didn't try hard enough. I don't know.
You know, it's kind of like, and you know, there's this whole thing in college that you can't cheat. So I feel like there should be a class where they teach you how to use Stack Overflow and how to find information online to solve bugs and stuff. So I don't even think I tried that because I didn't want to be cheating and then get suspended.
Maybe that's what it was. Maybe I was just so scared. I was like, let me just figure it out by myself.
Yeah, no, that's why like when I do YouTube videos, when I see a bug, I'm like, okay, y'all, let's copy and paste this into Google so y'all know early how to solve your problems, because I wish that was a thing. Not a professor just lecturing for an hour and 20 minutes and just like, we think they know all this stuff, but it's like, no, they Googled it and then made their presentation.
Yeah.
So then what advice would you give to people? Let's say they're about to be a freshman, they're studying computer science. Let's say they took a class before, let's say that, but like, what advice would you give to them?
Yeah, I would say do not be afraid to ask questions. And I feel like when people typically say that, they mean like these smart, like when you ask a question and the teacher says, wow, that's a good question. I don't mean those kind of questions. I mean the most base level, what does that word mean? If they start talking about strings and you don't get it, you just ask, okay, can we go over that again? What is a string? Is this an example of a string? Like, do not be afraid to ask those basic questions, because I promise you somebody else has the same question and they're just too scared to ask.
I've never heard someone actually break down what it means to ask questions, but that is exactly
Yeah.
it. You are paying all that money. Like, if you do not understand something, you went to class. Like, you might as well.
Yeah.
That. Yeah, I totally agree. And that even works when you're in industry too. Like, especially when you're new and in the beginning, like, of course you don't know anything about how this company runs. So like, ask those questions. Yeah, that's such good advice. So then, okay, so how did applying to internships and all of that go in college? And yeah.
So I was somebody who counted myself out for all the big name internships. I didn't think I was going to get them. I didn't think my grades were high enough. So there's this program here in Dallas where one of the state senators helps kids get internships
Okay.
in their field. And so I joined that, and I was able to get an internship at the IT department of the local hospital here.
Wow.
So I did that a couple times, and then I had to go back to school for like my last summer as a college student, because I had to retake some classes. So I only did those 2 internships, but I mean, they were valuable for the fact that they were internships and I got to practice being in corporate, but they weren't really coding, they were IT. And I guess that was kind of what I got from them, was I learned the difference between working in IT and working as a software engineer.
Okay.
So those were the only 2 I did. They were nothing to write home about, nothing fancy, no Google, no Facebook, no Microsoft, nothing like that.
Yeah, I was counting myself out too. I remember my freshman year, someone was like, yeah, apply to this Google program. And like, I applied, but then they messaged me like a week later, oh, we ran out of spots. And then my dumb self, I'm like, it's not meant to be. So I just,
yeah, right. It's just so easy to count yourself out. And once you realize that a lot of people are faking their confidence, like, it's crazy. And then realizing that like you can still apply for stuff even if you don't meet the requirements. You never know what's gonna happen.
yeah. And I was something similar. I was on social media and they were like, you don't have to be good at your hobbies.
Yes. What happened to just doing something fun?
Right. And I think it's same. It's like a lot of people are really faking it. Like I remember one time I was actually in office hours and I asked a simple question and someone in the back started giggling about the question I just asked. So then the tutor went to that person and was like, answer the question. And they were like, like they couldn't answer it.
What's funny?
Yeah, exactly. And that humbled them real quick. I'm so glad that tutor did that. But it's like a lot of people, they're faking it in this industry. Yeah. And it starts in college. Yeah. So then, okay, so let's talk about how you got your full-time job. How was that experience? Did you apply to a lot of companies? Any advice you would give?
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about the first one and I'll talk about where I work now. So my first job, it was the fall semester of my senior year. And, that's when we all start applying. If you didn't know, that is when you start applying to jobs. That way you can hopefully get a job in the fall and coast in the spring, just get your degree and leave, no stress. Don't be the senior that starts looking for jobs in the spring, or worse, after graduation. It's just no.
Yeah, even internships, like you just got to college, it is the fall and you need to look for internships for that summer.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's so crazy. My little brother is just finishing his freshman year of college, and I was asking him about internships. And he was like, oh, I didn't know how to get those. I'm just like, you have a sister, you're not like me. You're not the first. Come on, use your resources. So yeah, right. Do that. Now I forgot the question.
Oh yeah, looking for full-time jobs.
Oh yeah. Okay. So I started the fall semester in my senior year. I applied to a few places, of course, went to my college's job fair. I counted myself out for a few things. People were like, oh yeah, definitely apply. And I was like, they're not gonna hire me. So I just didn't apply. I probably had applied to about 10 places and got an interview at maybe 2, and I got hired by 1. And I took that and ran with it. I was like, perfect, got my job. I did what I came to do, not looking anywhere else. That was a mistake. Continue to look. You never know, the deal can get better. So that was my first job. Pretty simple. And honestly, as a fresh grad, that's probably the easiest time to get a job. Like the biggest job market. And I would say that's the only time the playing field is really leveled, right? Because they're all just asking you those
Yeah,
leak code questions.
I agree.
Got my
Yeah.
first job. And then I stayed there for about 2 years. I was very over it, very fed up. You can watch a video on my channel about that whole thing. But then I started my job search for another job, and this one was very different. I did so many interviews. I was having at least 1 interview per week for like 3 months straight. I practiced leak code for I instead of practicing leak code and then applying, I was applying while practicing leak code. I was like, if I get a job while studying, perfect. And my first interviews were not good. They were terrible, but I purposely interviewed with companies that I didn't mind losing. Like I had practice companies. And they were mostly like the small, no name, like maybe startup type companies. And so I leak coded. I would study 4 hours after work during the week. I was studying 8 hours on the weekends, doing whatever it took to get out of there. I was really weighing my options. I was doing research on salaries, company benefits, work-life balance, company culture, all that kind of stuff. There was a lot that went into my second job search because I learned so much about what to look for after my first. And so it wasn't as smooth as the college one, but it was a lot better. The search was better. It was longer. It was way more emotionally taxing and honestly way more mentally taxing, but it turned out way better than the first.
Yeah. So what did you specifically, and you don't have to say the company or anything, but what did you specifically not like about your first software engineering job?
There was no growth opportunities there. And what I mean by that is that they were very basic, very static, very much this is what we've always done and this is how we're going to do it. You had to fight for innovation there. You honestly had to fight for promotions and they really didn't mean anything. And of course, number one was they were not paying enough. Like they weren't even close to market rate. They were probably about half the market rate. All the interesting work was given to contractors, like overseas contractors. So the software engineers at that company are only doing the most basic, boring work, and anything like all the half of the mobile development, all of the like Alexa and Google Home development, and that's like machine learning, right? So all of that kind of stuff is thrown overseas. It's not really available for the main people to work on. There's maybe like 5 or 6 people that get the prestige of working on that at that company. So I was like, I outgrew the company. Like my dreams were way bigger, so I had to go.
And fast forward to your next job, you got promoted twice already.
Twice.
Look at that. Yeah.
Twice. I've been here 2 years and I'm honestly gunning for a third one. Pray for you, girl, trying to get it in September. Because I mean, and that's the thing, once you go somewhere where you can actually have impact and put in work, right? Like I was fighting for promotions at my first job. I think if you were to talk to somebody from my first job, like if those managers were to meet, they'd probably think I was 2 different people.
Wow.
And the thing is, you never gave me the opportunity to show you what I could do. You kept giving me these baby assignments. You never gave me a chance to shine. And so you didn't get to see it. And I wasn't going to deal with that.
Yeah, I love this. So when looking for companies, maybe you could say maybe 3 things that were like at the top of your list that your next company might have. I know you said one of them was the opportunities for growth, but if you have any others.
So I would say number 1 was definitely money for me because I needed some more money.
Yes.
Number 2 was definitely opportunities for growth in a company that was progressive. Okay. Right. So now I work at Microsoft and you can do literally anything in technology at Microsoft. And then of course they're going to be progressive. They're one of the leading technology companies and they have to, right? And then the third thing was definitely like company culture.
Mhm.
And I wanted like that big tech startup type culture. Like I didn't want to wear business casual. I wanted to like be able to go out to happy hours with my coworkers, or like I wanted happy hour to happen in the office.
Yes.
I wanted free food, and now I'm remote, so I don't get free food, but I would have gotten free food if I was in the office. I wanted like that true tech culture minus the toxicity.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, can you say maybe what is one of your favorite perks that you have at your current job?
My favorite perks is that, hmm,
Let's
I
keep
gotta
it
say
really
two.
tight.
I gotta say, so one of them is the massive amount of discounts we get at a lot of places. Um, like our discounts list is just wild, and it's honestly so legit. Like rental cars, I get them for like half the price.
Woo,
Yeah,
that is
and
good.
then yeah, right. And then I also love our wellness benefit. They give us a lot of money to spend on like financial wellness, mental wellness, and they extended it to hobbies, right? So now, like, if you, I don't know, like, what do they call them? Replica trains or whatever those
Oh,
are. You
yeah.
spend money on that. If you like making YouTube videos and you need cameras, you can spend your money on that. So I love those two benefits at my job.
Nice. Okay. And then something I wanted you to touch on is I know you have so many day in the life videos. Y'all check out her channel so you can see what it's like. But could you also walk us through a typical day in the life as a software engineer?
Of course. So, I do my hot girl morning routine as one does. And
Per.
then I sit down on my computer and I first check my emails to see if anything new has come through, emails and chats, just to see if there's any fires, really, anything that I need to get to ASAP.
Mhm.
Um, and then I'm a tech lead now, so my look is a little different. Yes, thank you, thank you. I will go to 2 stand-ups for the 2 projects I'm working on, maybe 3 if
Oh.
I have 3 projects, just depends. So I go to the stand-ups for those projects, and then I'll also have a separate meeting um, with the engineers as on those projects that I lead, and we'll talk about like what's done, what needs to get done, and then like if they have any blockers or anything that I can help them with. And I'll also just maybe ask to see the progress that they've made so far. So after some stand-ups, typically I'll have to complete some tasks. So like sometimes engineers need to offload stuff onto me as a lead, which is fine because I never want to be too far from the code.
Yeah.
So I'll complete some of those, and then I have to do stakeholder meetings to make sure that our projects are going as planned and sticking to product truth. That's a big thing on my team. Um, and that's typically my day. Now that I've moved into a lead position, I have a lot more meetings.
Mhm. How many hours on average in a day that you're in meetings?
At this point, it's like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
half my day, yeah.
Mhm.
But like I said, I'm making sure I don't get too far from the code. So I'm always pitching like, hey, we should actually do this. Hey, we should try this. And I'm
Mhm.
always trying to throw machine learning and
Nice.
data science into our projects for no reason.